Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our guests from Gill St. Bernard's and to the members of the Blair community who have joined us today. I'm Lizzie Devlin. I'm a senior here at Blair. I'm from Old Greenwich, Connecticut, and I'm one of your co-hosts here today. Today we are here to look at innovation and social change in today's shifting global landscape. And we have a lot of great student speakers who are here today to share their views on this subject. First up, we have Sanjay from Kinnelon, New Jersey. He's a four-year senior, a cross-country runner and a rower. And he's first and foremost a scholar who's driven and studious, highly critical of the world around him. But in the years that I've known him, I've never known him to be anything but kind and charismatic to those around him. He has been on Model UN all 4 years and leads our student-run debate team. He is here today to talk about how our beliefs factor into our everyday decisions. Please join me in welcoming Sanjay Paul.
Let's just jump right into it. So part of the reason I wanted to give this talk today, it stems from my childhood. See, I used to hate it when people would tell me that things were simple. Because honestly, nothing is really that simple. Every single problem we encounter in our lives has its own set of difficulties, complexities, its complications. And today I wanted to talk to you about one set of problems that we encounter as we reach this climax of social innovation in our everyday lives. It's a problem you encounter, have encountered today, I've encountered today, you will encounter tomorrow, and I will encounter tomorrow. And that's right or wrong. This cartoon is actually a personal favorite of mine. It's not that fun. I have a terrible sense of humor. But essentially, before we jump into this whole topic, let's play a quick game. Let's have some fun, all right? I need everyone to raise their hands accordingly to each of these next couple of questions. So be as honest as possible, please. How many people in this room believe that a student should try their hardest to succeed in the class? Good, if you didn't raise your hand, but yeah. How many people in this room believe that a government should try its hardest to guarantee its success? Okay, so most of you. Let's try another set of questions. They're a little bit different. Let's see if you can figure out what's different about them. How many people in this room believe that a student should try everything possible to succeed in the class? Okay, you be honest, come on. Don't worry about other people's opinions, all right? How many people in this room believe that a government should try everything possible to guarantee its success? Okay, some of you, good. So let's think about that for a second. The people who raised their hands the second time around, why'd you do that? Maybe it's because you believe successful ends justify ambivalent means. Maybe it's because you believe that doing everything possible is only natural, or maybe you just raised your hand because you kind of felt like it and you didn't really know what's going on. Either way, you're very different from the people who didn't raise their hand. So I'm going to throw around some names right here. Everyone, if just pay attention, because these are going to be very important for the rest of the talk. All right? So everyone who didn't raise their hand on any of the second questions, or one of the second questions, you're what I call a relativist. Now, a relativist subscribes to this theory of relative right and wrong. You make your decisions on what's right and what's wrong based off of how it affects others. So those of you who didn't raise your hands for the second question about school, you sat there for a second and thought, well, everything possible includes cheating, and cheating would affect all my friends. And for you, the means are more important than the ends, how we get there. So what about you people who raised your hands for the second questions? You're what I call a zero-summer. Now, so that's a relativist definition. A zero-summer. Now, zero-summer subscribes to this theory of zero-sum right and wrong. And zero-sum right and wrong means you make your decisions based on what's right and what's wrong, based off of how it affects you. For you, the ends justify the means. Now, I don't want to scare anyone here, there's no concrete definitions. No one is a complete zero-summer, and no one is a complete relativist. We change our opinions based on our biases and our situations, and every day, one day I could be a relativist, the next day I could be a zero-summer. And neither of these theories is right and wrong. So in order to get a better grasp of them, let's return to those original examples that I talked about. I was first introduced to this topic a couple weeks back in school. See, I'd caught one of my really good friends cheating to try and get a better grade, and I was disappointed. See, I'm a relativist when it comes to school. I don't think anyone should cheat and try and ruin the curve for other people. But because I respected my friend so much, I decided to figure out why he may have cheated. I knew he was under a lot of stress from college and schoolwork, and he's a very good student, a brilliant student. So maybe he thought one brief moment of unfairness would kind of continue this trend of good grades, and it would help him just to get his head above water. Because again, like I said, he's not a bad student. He was actually a very brilliant, he is a very brilliant guy. But he just got overwhelmed. And we all get overwhelmed from time to time. It's a human thing. And he shouldn't be punished for being overwhelmed. Should he? Well, there's your question, right? Who's right? Me, the condescending outsider, or him, this biased insider? And honestly, I don't know. I'm not here to tell you who's right or who's wrong. What I'm trying to get you to think about today is how our internal biases affect the way we think. But if we're going to make a decision like this, if we're going to try and figure out who's right, me or my friend, let's learn a little bit more about this subject. So let's start with the facts. According to glasscastle.com, 86% of high school students say that they have cheated at some point in their high school careers. 86%. Also according to glasscastle.com, more members of the public believe that cheating is an issue than members of the actual educational establishment. And even then, it's a slim 41% to 36. So if so many people care, and if so many people cheat, and so few people care, why is this even an issue, right? Well, let me take a look at a different point of view. Let's look at the theory behind this whole thing. It's a given fact that people who cheat ruin the curve for other people who work within the parameters of fairness, right? So is it really fair of that small percentage, or that large percentage, or whatever number you want to attribute to it, the people who are cheating to hurt people who trusted in their fellow man? And this is where the disagreement in the audience stemmed from. Half of you raised your hand, and the other half didn't, more or less, because the half that raised their hand ascribed to the fact part of the thing. They said 86% of people cheat at some point in their high school careers, and so few people care, so I should cheat also. Now, you relativists in the crowd, you sat there and said, well, what about that 14% who don't cheat? What about the people on the test who aren't cheating? I don't want to ruin things for them. And this difference in perspective, it haunts us in social innovation. And we sit there for a minute trying to debate what's equal, what's fair, what's libertarian, and we come to this disagreement, and no one wants to try and see things from the other point of view. So we've talked about school, but let's talk about the other example for a little bit. Let's shift gears pretty quickly. So we got similar results, right, when we did the whole hand experiment. Some people raised their hand for the second question for school, and some of those same people raised their hand for the second question about government. So that they should be pretty equal, right? But like I said in the beginning, everything in life is different. Everything is complicated. Everything in life is complicated, and we can't necessarily look at things the same way every time. So I'm going to bring you back to an example of when I was first introduced to the governmental side of this whole issue. It was about a week and a half back, and I was sitting in history class with my quirky and often quotable history teacher. Blair students know him as Dr. Miller. And Doc said something very interesting. It threw me off when he first said it. He said, persecution works in the short run, because in the long run, we're all dead. Now, I was sitting there, and I was kind of shocked by how morbid that statement was. And I sat there in utter disbelief and was almost confused, until I realized that, hi Doc, that Doc is right. He's right. Some of the greatest leaders in history, Deng Xiaoping, the Romanovs, Joseph Stalin, they all used persecution to secure whatever means possible. And now I can already see it. Some of you relativists in the room are jumping out of your seat. And you're cursing at me, and you're saying, how can you dare support great leaders? How can you dare support these leaders? Not even history has defended them. It's actually deposed guys like the Romanovs and Joseph Stalin. And you're right. You're not wrong. History hasn't defended these leaders. It's actually made enemies out of them, made them into monsters. But if we try and think about what they're doing, we can kind of come to grips with the zero-sum point of view, right? Deng Xiaoping was trying to bring China into the modern era. He was trying to take a country, he was trying to take one of the poorest countries in the world and make them into one of the richest countries. And he practically has succeeded to this day, even though he's not around to see it anymore. And then the Romanovs were trying to hold together the largest country in the world, made up of a multitude of different ethnicities, constantly changing its borders, constantly defending itself from enemies. So of course persecution needed to mold social order. And then Stalin, there's really no defending Stalin, but I still make my point, right? If you think about it, without these leaders, without Deng Xiaoping, without the Romanovs, without Stalin, there's only anarchy and civil war. And then it begs the question, are anarchy and civil war really better than a country that produces successful ends? So, I want everyone to read this quote. If you're going to take anything from what I said today, I want you to take this. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. So every time you get into a disagreement with one of your friends, or if you're watching the Republican debate last night and seeing candidates yell at each other and call each other dumb names, we need to think of why that's happening. It's not because one party is right or one party is completely wrong. It's because we believe we're right and we don't want to look at things from the other person's perspective. And so there's differences in how, these differences in how we see things as right and wrong and how other people see things as right and wrong, they mold us, they shape us, and as we encounter this future of greater social innovation, we need to be prepared for that. We need to be able to walk into a conversation and sit down and understand the other person's point of view without patronizing them for thinking differently. And whether it's on a molecular level or the grand scale, whether it's on a molecular level or the grand scale, life is complicated. You're going to run into these roadblocks. You're going to run into these difficulties, these complexities, these complications, and you're going to meet people who don't agree with you. It's part of life. The difference between us as a successful society and us as an unsuccessful society is running into these roadblocks and smiling at people who don't agree with you, and taking everything they say with a grain of salt, understanding what they say, and hopefully building a better future for us as a people. Thank you.